to kill herself and had planned to flee to Osaka and jump off of Mount Ikoma with Ichiro's genitals in her hands.
I mean, it's really sad and also gross. It's
so gross.
It's so gross.
She never really made it that far, however. Police who were already searching for her since the discovery of Kichiro Ishida's body 3 days prior were suspicious of an alias that she had given to an inn that she was staying at.
Uh-huh.
When police entered her room, she said to them, quote, "Don't be so formal. You're looking for Sada Abe, right? That's me. I am Sada Abe."
Okay. So gave zero pretense. Tried not to escape, obviously.
She said that to the police, and the police were actually not convinced that it was her. I don't know why. They just weren't convinced. She pulled out the genitals from her purse, and she was like, "Believe me now." After being arrested and interrogated for 8 days, Sada had given police all of the information they needed to charge her with Kichiro's death. During her interrogation, one of her most noteworthy quotes came after police had asked her why she killed Kichiro. And according to police, her face lit up and her eyes sparkled. And she said to them, "I loved him so much. I wanted him all to myself. But since we were not husband and wife, as long as he lived, he could be embraced by other women. I knew that if I killed him, no other woman could ever touch him again, so I killed him."
That's kind of a weird...
In a weird way, it's not the worst thing that has been said in the story. The newspapers sensationalized the story and ran wild with it because it had all come at a time in history when the Japanese media was so focused on military and political troubles. Plus, there was a looming full-scale war about to break out in China.
Mm-hmm.
So Sada Abe's sex scandal served as a welcome distraction and a release from the troubles of the time.
Okay, which is the way that we kind of use it now.
It's not like she wasn't already going to become infamous for what she did, but she became so much more infamous and so widely talked about.
Because they needed a break.
Because there she was. Let's use her as an excuse to think about something else. After Sada's arrest, Kichiro's penis and testicles were taken to the Tokyo University Medical School's Pathology Museum, where they were put on public display.
Pass.
And soon after World War II, they apparently had disappeared. The first day of Abe's trial was on November 25th of 1936. And by 5 a.m., massive crowds were already gathering outside hoping to attend. During her trial, the judge presiding over it had admitted to being sexually aroused by the details of the case, but wanted to assure everybody that the trial and sentencing would be held with the utmost seriousness.
Okay, but you do not get to preside over the trial, period.
There's already a problem.
Yeah.
She was found guilty of murder in the second degree and found guilty of mutilation of a corpse. Just before they had handed her sentence down to her, she made a statement to everybody in the courtroom and to the press. And she said, "The thing I regret most about this incident is that I've come to be misunderstood as some kind of sexual pervert. There had never been a man in my life like Ishida. There were men I liked and some with whom I slept with without accepting money. But none made me feel the way that I did about him. She killed him, but I'm sad for her."
Yeah.
Which is a weird place to be.
Yeah.
So Sada was sentenced to only 6 years in prison. She only served 5 of them, as her sentence was commuted on November 10th, 1940. And she was released on May 17th, 1941, exactly 5 years to the day of Kichiro's murder.
Okay.
After being released from prison, Sada Abe found it necessary to assume an alias, which I understand.
Which, obviously.
She soon after became the mistress to a successful man whose name has never been known, but whom she's spoken about afterwards, and moved with him from Ibaraki Prefecture to Saitama Prefecture. She lived happily with him there until her true identity had become known to his family, after which she felt it necessary to break off and end their relationship.
Which Understandably.
Hard to defend yourself
Yeah.
when everybody knows everything about you.
Yeah.
Sada Abe has had several books and films written about her and has even published her own memoirs. The most famous of the films produced about her were A Woman Called Sada Abe and In the Realm of Senses, which was widely banned throughout Japan for its sexually explicit scenes.
Okay, which understandable.
You know how I said Kichiro's penis and genitals going missing? Well, they went missing after she was released from prison, so I just want to throw that out into the universe. Sada disappeared in the early 1970s, and almost nothing is known about what happened to her other than the last time she was seen. Her hair was cut short, and she was living at a nunnery in Kansai when sought out by the director Nagisa Oshima before the release of the aforementioned film in the Realm of Senses.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, so little is known about what happened to Sada Abe after that point that even trying to find a date of her death is nearly impossible. And that was Sada Abe, a story that I've been dying to resurrect from the dark days and talk about for a long time.
And I've been waiting for it to happen, and I'm super jazzed it happened today. And there's a reason. Get it, Goro. I've told you before so many times that I would never redo this.
Did you resurrect something too?
I resurrected something too, and it happens to be
the
same episode that we did Sada Abe before. Oh, that's why I was smiling at you when you first started doing Sada Abe. But I legit was like, I don't feel like I can dedicate enough to do this other story, because we're working on a couple other stories currently to do this upcoming week that are
big deals,
really important to us.
Big deals,
and
yeah.
Really important to get right. The House of Death at 14 West 10th Street. It's in New York, and it's actually near Washington Square Park. It was built in the 1850s for elite tenants. That area at the time was a really high sought after area, including a member of the Colonel Dames. It's something that's akin to the DAR. The member that was part of the Colonel Dames was a wife to James Borman, who had helped the Metropolitan Underground Railway and the Broadway Underground Railway. It housed social elite, actors, and writers like Samuel Clemens, who would be known most as Mark Twain.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. He had actually lived there for a year.
That's really cool. Really cool.
Totally. The house and the street carry a lot of history and supposed ghostly energy. There is supposedly a ghost of Edgar Allan Poe and a woman that was responsible for the poem The New Colossus, which was the poem on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. Her name was Emma Lazarus, and both of which are often seen on the street or on the balcony of Edgar Allan Poe's old residence. In addition to the 22 ghosts that have been recorded in the building, there are also other reasons that the house has been dubbed as the House of Death or Hell House.
22?
22.
Wow.
Right. What I've gotten is not all of them, because any resident, because of psychology, people believe certain things. You can actually see things because of the manner of which your brain wants to perceive them and associate it with a different entity and or a house creak or whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think people want to believe so strongly that what they've experienced or seen is real that they adamantly insist that it was a ghost.
Right. In 1987, an old New York criminal defense attorney had beat his 6-year-old adopted daughter. Now, here's the thing. Allegedly was not legal. I found no other information on why she was allegedly adopted, but the general consensus is that she was not actually his daughter.
I misinterpreted that. So she was allegedly adopted. Yeah, that's not that makes me feel weird. I don't know about that.
Yeah. It happened a lot, and apparently at this particular time, the last time he had beat her, he had beaten her enough to have her register as brain dead in the hospital. When they had found her, there was also an infant covered in filth and tied to a playpen, and his unconscious wife.
No.
Going back to Mark Twain, he was such a skeptic that even when a piece of kindling had floated in front of him, all he had done was shoot it. Even after finding blood with no discernible source, he had still maintained that the ghosts were existent in the house.
I don't imagine I would invite him to a horror movie with me or to a haunted house or anything, because I feel like lots of gunshots would probably go off, but...
Despite Mark Twain being a known skeptic, his ghost apparently seems to still haunt the house, walking into areas in his suit, especially around the lower apartments. In the 1930s, a mother and daughter met Twain near a window in their apartment. He said, "My name is Clemens, and I have a problem here that I've just gotta settle." And then he disappeared.
So, is there any mention of what happened after he disappeared? How did they react?
No, there isn't actually, weirdly. In the house, the most oft seen, besides Twain, are a lady in white, a small child, and a stray cat. The most documented sightings are none of the ones that I've just listed. In the 1950s, Jan Bryant Bartell had moved in.
Great name.
She would hear footsteps following her, someone brushing against her, and then also would oft smell, quote, ancient perfume.
I love it. Okay.
And rotting odors throughout her entirety of the house and floorboards.
Okay, bad time. So great name, bad time.
It escalated from there, and she would see a, quote, large hulking shadow man. She had touched it, and the shadow that she had touched was described as, quote, a substance without substance. Chilly, deep, damp, diaphanous, and marsh mist or a cloud of ether. I could feel my fingers freeze at the tips. They were numb, and yet they tingled. In the split second between contact and recoil, the scent came, fragile and languorous, and sweet, clay-like sweet.
That's so vivid that I can absolutely imagine that.
Well, she eventually ended up being a writer, so I love the manner of which she speaks about this in a way that you can actually feel it when she actually talks about it.
She should be a writer because that was very descriptive.
Apparently, everything in the house continued to escalate. Shadows in the house would have that which, quote, no light would touch. The sound of breaking glass would follow her throughout the entirety of the house when no glass was broken, and a chair that would constantly shift and snarl.
A chair that would constantly shift and snarl?
Yes. Apparently, she also heard a dog that would be angrily snarling at her as well.
Did she ever see the dog, or did she just hear it?
She heard it.
In a lot of ways, don't people oftentimes describe non-human entities as growling at them?
Yeah, but I feel like you want to impart some sort of process of something, and therefore you associate it with something that you know.
I definitely get it that that's how she described it.
Right.
It just makes me curious. And there's a real difference between something tangible and something that you think that you may have heard or felt.
Right. Apparently, after living in the house for a while, she and her husband had asked a medium to come in. And after that medium had been there, a shriveled grape had appeared in the middle of a clean plate. During the seance, Jan became possessed by the spirit of a 19-year-old Renee Mallison, who said she held Lincoln personally responsible for her husband's death in the Civil War. When the medium had asked the ghost to leave, she had said, "Never. I will never leave here. They will have to go. This is my home, and I will never leave. Peace out, Cub Scout."
No, girl, I ain't even down with that.
Eventually, about 14 years later, they had fled the house. There apparently is a legend that